Hello, welcome to the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and today we are very excited to have with us Andre Lodree. Andre is the founder and executive director of 4 Point Play. Andre, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for having me here, Roy. I'm excited to be here to talk with you today.
I know you're doing some incredible work here around the Chicago community, and we want to dive into that and hear more of the details. It's been a challenging year for everybody.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I really want to go back to your life and when you were a child and what got you attracted to sports in the first place.
Yeah, for me, I think I've been in love with basketball has been my favorite sport most of my life. So I was in love with basketball since I was 5. We had a rim on our garage, and I was out there shooting, and been in love ever since. So that's really what got me started. Over the years, definitely improved the game, learned the game better, and things like that. I was blessed to grow up to see, Michael Jordan play in the NBA. So I had a lot of the years of the late 80s, early 90s where I get to see Michael Jordan play and grow. And so as a Chicago kid, watching WGN every night to watch Michael Jordan play was just a blessing to grow up and see. So yeah, that's how, I fell in love with the game.
So basketball from an early age, obviously Chicago's got a long track record of basketball stars that have come out of the city.
Mhm.
So you had some great role models, even beyond MJ. Certainly, most of us that love sports, we may not be able to, we know we might not be as good as the superstar, but we always think that we can be on that team somewhere, right? We have a
Right.
chance to be one of the other players. So as you progress through your career growing up, tell us a little bit about your athletic career.
Yeah, so I played high school ball, of course. I then played some college ball at Triton College for a couple of years. From there, I played some semi-pro. I played on the Chicago Steam team for a year, and then after that, I kind of went into just trying to really, coach the game and trying a way to give back. Because by then, when you get to a certain place, you realize, oh, I'm not going to be able to get to the place where I want to be, which is the ultimate goal, NBA. But I've been through, I would say tens and tens of tryouts over my career to different semi-professional teams. I'm very familiar with rejection. So, so I think as an athlete, you are definitely have to have thick skin, have to have a good self-confidence, but also understand, what more you can offer to the game as a whole. And so that was when my thought process and plan kind of transition.
Yeah, it's challenging because it's always hard when people are going through the process of playing for their career. Nobody wants to give up the sport, right? But
Right.
most people get to a point where they recognize, right, I'm not going to be MJ. I'm not going to be able to necessarily make it to the NBA. And as much as I love playing semi-pro ball or things like that, they
Right.
recognize after doing that for a while that um, that may not pay the bills either, right? And they've got to
Right.
find something um, that can do that. So tell us a little bit about that transition as you went through the process of going away from your semi-pro type of ball and then what the next
Mhm.
step was for you.
Yeah. So for me, I still play basketball, still play now. And it's interesting because my wife always jokes, if someone offered you a contract in the NBA right now, would you take it? And I was like, yes, I would. So it's like I feel like you never are at that point where it's like it's over. I feel like you always feel like you got a little left in the tank, if you will. But you do get to a point where you realize that you cannot give to the sport athletically as much as you were able to when you were younger. So I got to that point and realized that there are so many young kids coming up right now, and realizing the need for coaches is to be in that space to help them develop and grow, and just sow the seeds that were sown in my life in their life. And so when I recognized that I had a shift in purpose, if you will, and with a goal to kind of be more of a coach and more of you know, a advisor and advocate for the youth instead of just playing the game.
And that's a big shift, and
Mhm.
it takes time to grow into that role. Even you might know you want to do that, right? But you haven't had the experience and the training necessarily to get to that point. So
Mhm.
tell us about, as you were going through that, how you came up with 4 Point Play and what kind
Mhm.
of things you're working on now.
Well, the big deal, as I got started with the coaching, uh, definitely realized there were the resources that I had growing up. A lot of these youth don't have growing up, especially now in this past year has been even more diminished. So the kids weren't able to go to the neighborhood park because violence was happening in their communities and things like that. I didn't really experience that growing up, so I always had a park I can go play basketball in. And then it's like most of their park districts and community centers aren't equipped with gyms or equipped with people to supervise and monitor and teach them the game. So when I realized that, I said, I've been blessed to have uh, this talent and to learn from good coaches. And it was the idea that we need to pay it forward. And so I saw the need and really was like, what can I do to, uh, meet this need and solve this issue? I've been working in nonprofit, organizations for the past 13 or 14 years. So about 7 years ago, I was like, let me start my own nonprofit and really take this opportunity to give back to the youth, and to the community as a whole. And so that's when 4 Point Play was born. We definitely, had the idea that we're going to provide a safe place for these kids to play. We're going to provide them with the right skill set, development environment for them. And we're going to provide, just the freedom, the freedom to be creative. A lot of the kids, a lot of the coaches that I've encountered over the years expect certain kids to play at certain levels. And while they may not be at that level at that point, those coaches sometimes don't allow them to grow and develop into that level, give them the tool set. They tend to focus on the kids that are already good. And it's easy to coach good kids. It's easy to coach good athletes that can know how to play the game. It's easy to coach them. But you find out how good of a coach you are by coaching the kid that doesn't get it, that doesn't know it, that needs a lot more practice, needs a lot more attention to really develop and grow. And for me, that's what we wanted to really specialize in, like making sure that all of the kids are having opportunity to learn the game. And even with the kids that are advanced in skills, a lot of them lack leadership. And so they might be the best player, but they don't understand how to make their teammates better and how to cultivate good relationships on a team. So it's also teaching them the different aspects of the game that they can use to improve their game, but also to improve their team as a whole. So those were some of the things that we definitely kind of keyed in early on with 4 Point Play.
And that's a big undertaking. I think one
Yeah.
of the challenges that a lot of people underestimate is how hard it is to get a nonprofit organization off of the ground and
Yeah.
what's involved. So as you look back at the process of getting started up, go back to the first year or two. Tell
Yeah.
us about what some of the biggest challenges were as you're trying to get that started.
Well, I think the biggest challenge was, especially in the first year or two, is finding the time to really devote to it. I think, a nonprofit is a nonprofit. So it wasn't like we were rolling in the dough in the beginning at all. And it was really like all passion. And so that first year or two was really a grind of just saying, hey, I'm working a full-time job at a nonprofit organization. And at night, I'm running a 2-hour program for youth to come in and play basketball and learn the game. And at the same time, marketing and recruiting kids and sharing this information to different schools and youth organizations to get those kids in the gym so we can provide our programs for them. And it all kind of, I look back, how did I do it? It's like, you say like, wow, that was a lot of work when you're looking back at it. But I mean, I think that passion was there and the commitment to the community was there. And so while looking back, it seems like a lot of work, it wasn't time. It was that idea that, hey, these kids need this, and this is the sacrifice I'm making to make sure that they get it. But yeah, those first 2 years, man, it was. I say I was blessed on some levels because I had a good partnership with a church and school that was giving us the space to use the gym and things like that. So that was definitely great. Uh, and so I think that kind of eased some of the burden, that financial burden that was there. So that really allowed us to kind of have our programming and have a foundation to build on, if you will.
Well, and again, you just described a lot of steps, and
Yeah.
as people grow through it, you articulated it well. You talked about the fact that um, most people that come and start a new organization are looking at, how do I get off the ground? How do I pay the bills for myself personally? Because this is my passion. This is what I want to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not enough money. The money you're raising, to the extent you can even raise money in the first couple of years, right? The
Right.
money you're raising is going to cover the cost of the programs and the events that you're doing. And there's not a big pot of gold there to pay
Right.
Andre in the lifestyle that he wants to become accustomed to, right?
Right.
Um,
Right. Exactly.
so the idea is, as you look back now over those challenges, um, what are the things that you've gotten better at from
Mm-hmm.
an organizational perspective? What's been most important for your growth?
Um, I would say um, being more conscientious about our programming and actually capturing what we do. Early on, it was not about sharing how we do things and things like that. It was really about, we got to do the programming, we got to make sure the kids are there and making sure that they're learning, and just that was really it. That's because we didn't have. I don't feel like we had the capacity to do anything else. As we've now in our 7th year, we've gotten better at making sure our programming that we're doing is um, focused, but also um, we are able to really articulate what we're getting out of our programming. So what our youth are coming to our programming and receiving to take with them as they go. And a lot of people think that when you're doing a basketball program or even a sports program organization, it's all about the sport. It's not. The youth are taking more than just the knowledge of the game. They're really taking the other soft skills that come along with it: leadership, teamwork, self-confidence, just all of these things that they're able to learn and develop in that programming and then take that for the rest of their life. And so I think we've gotten a lot better at capturing that and then also sharing that out, which we really didn't do a lot in the past. We just were like, we're doing a program, come out. Oh,
Yeah, I think that that capture and share is a big element, especially in today's world of social media and everything that
Yeah.
goes on. It's hard because on the one hand, um, you're growing, you've got time, and you've got to focus on the programs being good, because if the programs aren't good, kids aren't coming back, right? And
Right.
then the second layer is, once the programs are good and kids are coming back, now we have to be able to validate
Hmm.
the depth of the program, and we have to be able to validate the impact that the program is making in order to attract dollars from sponsors and grant makers. And so as you, in a sense, you're never finished, right? But as
Right.
you got better, from the programming side, how did you transition to be able to start measuring the best way for you to make that impact and measure that impact?
Yeah, and I think what we try to do, we we thrive off of feedback. So we've created a system and a process where we're getting feedback from our youth, we're getting feedback from our parents, our community partners that we may be working with, and we take that feedback and allow that to dictate the development of our programming. And it's I think it's a very interesting process because it's a nonprofit is a community organization. So we want to make sure that we are community based. And so the one way we do that is by taking that community feedback and making sure that we're implementing that feedback in our programming. Because I feel like that's one of the most important things we can do, is because ultimately the community says, hey, we need to solve this problem, and your program is or isn't doing that. And so we want to make sure that the community is saying that our programming is solving that problem.
So as you look at solving problems for the community, then
Mhm.
um, give us an example of what kind of messaging you're getting from the community on what those problems are. What problems are they asking you to solve?
Yeah, I would say, I feel that, just I would say community leadership is a big deal. Mentorship is a big deal. A lot of the youth that we encounter, they have a family support system, of course. Sometimes that family support system is not as thriving as it needs to be for that child. So a lot of the parents that we work with and that we communicate with is thankful that we're there to be the extra voice to really validate the message that the parents are giving. I think we often know that's an old saying where it takes a village to raise a child, right? And so our youth are part of our village, hopefully, and that we're part of their village, and we're doing the best that we can to make that village safe, make sure that village has positive um, role models and an impact in their life that's going to be long term instead of short term. And most of our that's I believe like most of our feedback is in that realm where that we are that organization that is keeping our kids active, keeping them positive, and making sure that they have another voice that there that's giving them positive things to look for, positive goals to set, and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that the positive impact, positive goals to set are all right, all great things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the challenge, as you identified, right, is you look at these competing demands, right, and the community's needs change over time, and
Yeah.
the kids change. But you've been around for a substantial amount of time now, and people have gotten to know you in the community. People have seen you validate the work that you're doing. You've probably been around long enough where you even have people that have gone through the program coming back
Mm-hmm.
and participating in some of those other roles as mentors or leaders or speakers or whatever else they can get involved with. Um, what's interesting is as that growth builds, talk a little bit about what you need now, right? So as you said, You started 7 years ago, right?
Right.
Um, now we're gonna go to the fairy tale side and say, okay, now we're starting out a new year. We've gotten rid of
Right.
COVID. Um, what do the next 3 years look like for you? What's on your agenda in terms of what you want to accomplish and what kind of help you need?
Yeah. I would say first off, this year's interesting year for us. Just as I think last year was just as interesting. Our plan, one of our biggest plans for this year specifically, is to pass out 2021 athletic care bags. Last year, we were able to. We started this program in response to a lot of the concerns that were happening during COVID. We realized park districts were shut down, recreational parks were shut down, youth organizations, community centers were all shut down, and kids didn't have the same resources that they had before. And a lot of the kids that we were trying to get to join our virtual programming didn't have, basket equipment like sports equipment at their home. So we created an athletic care bag that provides a basketball, two cones, a jump rope, a nice little workout plan, a fun little 4-point play wristband, and so we give these bags to our youth. Last year we were able to give out over 600 bags, and that we believe is going to help them, stay active at home. And we went all virtual, so we have our virtual camps and things like that that are happening, and so the kids can be involved in the program and have the equipment at home. I remember a couple of kids, we were doing it virtual program, and we had one kid that was playing with a beach ball. Another kid was like, I don't have a basketball, but I have a soccer ball. We're like, okay, that'll work too. So it's really the understanding that the equipment wasn't there, because a lot of these kids were used to going to their neighborhood. Their friends may have a ball in the neighborhood. You know how you're when you're a kid, if the neighbor had a ball, all of you had a ball, kind of deal. So that there's not a neighbor anymore to play with. So we understand that. We understood that last year. We created this athletic care bag, and so we're doing that this year. And then we also wanted to, we want to do just more structured programming that has more longevity. So we want to kind of create different things that's going to keep our youth with our programming for longer periods of time. Right now, we really focus on a lot of middle school age kids, and between, I would say, 4th to 8th grade is where we kind of land. That's where we kind of started at, our main focus. So we want to kind of open that up to more high school kids moving forward, preparing them for college, connecting them with mentors that are in the sport that they're playing, whether it's a basketball mentor or even just individuals that are in business, in the working field, that can give them some type of mentorship to help them get through that high school and college phase that they have to get through. We're finding a lot of our youth are not as informed about that process of transitioning from high school to college, but also that process from transitioning to college to real life. So we want to make sure that our youth are equipped and skilled with that. And I think the next couple of years, that's something we're going to move more towards, with the idea that that we're going to have our kids longer, the youth longer, so we're going to make even a bigger impact, and hopefully transition them right back into coaching and mentoring with our organization when they get out of college and get into the workplace themselves.
Yeah, it's really so many components that you're bringing together, and that's why I give you so much credit for everything that you've been able to accomplish. It's really hard to get things off the ground. People don't understand that.
Mhm.
In some ways, it's even harder to create that solid base that has that longevity. So you see a lot of people get something off the ground, and then when they get 3 years in, 5 years in, 7 years in, they
Yeah.
realize, hey, wait a minute, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be hard at the beginning. I didn't realize it was going to be hard all of the time,
All the
right?
time.
And I think that's what makes it so interesting is seeing the people who've really done an amazing job building an organization and building up the structure to support that. So, you know, tell us a little bit about how you've been able to build that kind of solid base.
Well, I would say for me, I was blessed because, like I said, I've worked in nonprofit before, so I didn't really go into this venture blind. You know, I had background information. Most of my experience with the nonprofit is on the administration side. So I had a lot of experience about the organization, building it up, the different things that need to be successful to get the framework and everything together. So because I had that experience, I was able to develop those things early on and create that foundation that's needed. And also, I wasn't, because I was used to working in a nonprofit, I wasn't concerned when I wasn't bringing in any money. And I think like that's something that you have to get used to with a nonprofit. It's like it has its highs and lows, and sometimes your lows can be very low, especially early on. So that was one thing that I was always aware of, that if I'm not bringing in money, it's okay, because what I'm doing is making an impact, and that is going to translate as we stay with it. I think you have to have that commitment to running an organization for it to grow, especially a nonprofit organization. You have to be committed to it. Through rain, hail, sleet, and snow, you got to be committed to that. And that's what I've been able to do. And I mean, but still, you have those days that's hard. Those days that you wake up and like, am I really doing the right thing? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? You're not getting the response you want from a new program you started. Like all of those things come into play. And maybe you're not getting the funding you want to get because, it's very competitive, especially in Illinois, to get that funding. So the smaller organizations tend to not last very long because they're unable to get that funding. So it's definitely a challenge, but I wake up every morning, with the mindset that I'm going to accept this challenge and keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that that challenge and moving forward is really for people that work in the nonprofit space, right? That's what keeps it going.
Yeah.
um, because you've never arrived, right? You've never got it all done. You've never got to the point where you feel like you've serviced everybody who needs it. All our programs are perfect. We raise the exact
Right.
amount of money that we need, and our communication systems and our donors, everybody knows what's going on. Everything's in order, right? And you walk in the
Right.
morning and your desk is clean,
Yeah.
and there's you're kind of just sit back and put, relax, kick up your feet on the desk and say, hey, we've done it. Right,
Right.
it doesn't ever get there, and so the challenges
No.
continue. Right, you have a new,
Mm.
whether it's a staff person that leaves, whether it's a donor that shifts his commitment or her commitment, whether it's programs that for some reason, COVID or otherwise, right, are no longer uh, effective. We've all
Right.
seen things where kids get the same message, the same message, the same message, and they need a different voice. They need a different format. What worked for kids in, you know, 20 years ago, that doesn't work for kids anymore. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think that's a unique challenge that makes it interesting. So
Hmm.
when we talked about what your plans were for the next few years, but give us one last view ahead and tell us, what do you see as the biggest obstacle for you when you look ahead? What is the area you need the most help in, and maybe our network can support and assist you in that? Obviously dollars are always important, we know
Right.
that, but beyond the dollars, what are the things that you could really use help with?
Yeah, I would say a big thing that I'm hoping is like I want to say a 5-year plan, 5-year goal, if you will, facility. One of the things we've noticed is having your own facility is very just beneficial, because you can control that. I think when we've been able to use other facilities and things like that to run our programming, And we partner with other organizations and schools and things like that to do what we do. But it's just that reality that having our own will also allow us to do more. And we have a lot of things that are, we've put in our vision board, if you will. It's like, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to be. And I think a facility for us will be a big, like box checker for us to really say, hey, now we're able to really do our programming in an effective way in the way we want to do it, and not really depend on other partners and schools and things like that. And it would just empower us, I think, even more as an organization.
Well, Andre, I want to commend you on the work that you're doing. I think
Mm.
it's incredible, and I certainly hope that our network will support that and that we continue to collaborate and look for partnership opportunities, because I know that with what you're doing, I think that things like those bags that you're talking about is a great way that we can connect, and that's something that people can support and sponsor and do things like that. So I'd like us
Definitely.
to explore that type of opportunity particularly. So again, congratulations on all the great work that you're
Thank,
doing.
yeah, thank you very much.
So before we let you go, I want to take a minute and put you on the spot a little bit and have a little fun to wrap up the show here. So we're going to wave our sports philanthropy superpower magic wand, and I need to get a real magic wand that I can wave for the show here. But um, we want to appoint you as commissioner of one of the sports. So I want you to tell me what sport you would like to be commissioner of.
Man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna stick with the NBA though. I'm gonna stay there. I'm gonna stick with basketball. I know a lot about it. I think I should be able to do well in that job.
All right. So you're going to be the commissioner of the NBA.
Mhm.
Adam Silver now is, you kicked him out of the office in New York, and he's on the beach just kicking his feet up, and Andre's taking over and going to take charge. So you come in there. What's your first
Mhm.
course of action? If you have one thing that you get a freebie to change a rule in the game or change a policy, what would you like to see different?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to change.
Well, give
I
us
would
a
say,
few.
let's see, one thing. Okay, well, let's see. I can list a few. We need to figure out what's the traveling call. I don't know what the deal is, but I feel like they have changed this call so many times. So we need to figure out what that call is, because right now I feel like that happens a lot more than what it should. I would say too, there has to be something done about defense. I don't know what it is, what we can do, but I feel like in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot just more defense involved in basketball. Now it's definitely more offensive focused. And I think this has happened with all sports for the most part, but basketball has definitely gotten more offensive minded and less defensive. So, and I think, we've had some rule changes around that. And I think we need to kind of dial some of the offensive favored rules down a little bit and give those defensive players some opportunity to actually play some better defense. So those would be my two main ones to do.
Okay. Well, I think those are some interesting opportunities and things that that we can certainly play around with.
Right.
Be interesting to see what goes on. And unfortunately, I think in today's culture, the move towards making a sport more defensive is unlikely.
Right.
You see the same thing in football, you see the same thing in soccer, you see the same thing
Yeah.
in hockey. Um, right? Really, the only sport that doesn't seem to have really loosened up rules to favor the offense is probably baseball,
Yeah.
where they haven't really made it easier, although some would say that they've changed the ball and let that fly further and things like that. But uh, fantastic work, Andre. Keep up. Why don't you tell everybody where they can reach you if they want to touch base and support for the work you're doing?
Yeah. So we are 4 Point Players everywhere. We're all on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook. You can find us there. We have a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. You can find all of our social media links on our website, which is the number 4 ptplay.org. That's the number 4 ptplay.org. You can find all about us there.
Thank you so much for coming on the show with us, Andre.
Thank you for having me, Roy. It has been a pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, this is Roy Kessel signing off for the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. Please remember to live generously. Have a great day. We hope you'll join us for our next episode.